Yes, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
Cute.
But I have to mute it because I did not do that before I started the. I don't know if you guys want to hear the fun sounds. This is a Disney produced, well, Disney created Oswald, because as we're gonna learn in this book, hopefully we've already learned, he did get it taken away from him. So our Linkletter did the forward. I just have one quote from that. It says, he had no use for the glitz and phoniness of Hollywood. And that definitely seems like the Walt we all know. He's not a glitzy, phony Hollywood guy, obviously. Let's see what else. Chapter 1, it starts with Walt being born in 1901 to a very strict and religiously devout family. Elias was obviously abusive as well. And that was not fun to read about, obviously, but it's the fact. But he also, on the flip side, did teach he did teach Walt a lot of honesty and hard work. Walt decided to emulate all the positive traits of his father rather than look for the negative, which is something we're going to continuously see in these first two chapters. Walt takes the positive out of everything. Let's see.
Patrick, I know you're speaking, but I'm so distracted by this.
Well, I'm not even getting to watch, but they look great. So Flora was obviously very smart because she was actually like the architect of their house, which was very cool. Then they moved to Marceline, which is, of course, we all know what Main Street's based off of. Let's see what else we got here. Walt made a homemade circus and charged the kids 10 cents. I thought that was very funny and obviously telling of his future plans. The first play he ever saw was Peter Pan. And I shared this on a text messages, but flowers do not have faces, said Walt's teacher to Walt. And obviously he would later then create lots of things with flowers with faces in cartoons, and she would be wrong. So I thought that was very interesting. Just kind of a lesson in don't say no to people, especially when it comes to artistic things. Well, trying to skip around so I don't share everything on here. Yeah, there was a huge flu pandemic, which is obviously relevant to now, in 1918, and it was the thing that actually kept him from really going over the war because of everybody getting sick and everything, and that was something that really changed all of our lives, because who knows what would have happened if he had gone at that time. He says, don't be like Walt in one way, don't smoke. So that's a good little lesson there. So then lesson 1 was live the adventure, which I thought was really great. Like, just go for your goals, go for your dreams. We're going to continue to hear about that. As I always talk about in my walk around the park with you guys, what is your legacy? We all know Walt's, but we want to have our legacy, and that's kind of what this book is talking about. Find your legacy, find what's important to you, and don't quit, because Walt didn't, obviously. So Walt was a great salesman, we found out in chapter 2. Obviously, we all know that, but at 20, he goes around and sells $15,000 worth of stock to people to start a studio, which makes me feel like such a lazy bum. He started the Laugh-O-Gram Studios, and then they definitely got a contract for 5 films, but the money was so tight that he didn't even have enough money to get his shoes back from the shoemaker, which was, I think, telling how poor he at one time was. Then we move on to the Alice comedies, and that's when he moves to California for the Alice comedies, and they start the Disney Brothers Studios. The studios were strapped for cash, and Walt and Roy would often take a pay cut to make the payroll. So they would be the ones that wouldn't make pay. They would make sure their artists, which is really an interesting thing, especially for our day and age, that, you know, we should think about the people that are working for us first before we think about ourselves. And then Walt became a item with his one of his Incan painters, Lily. She becomes his wife. Let's see what else. And then, of course, we were looking at Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and that was something where he lost this character, which was a big success for him, in a contract dispute. And he said, on the way home, he said he would never work for anybody again. And as he was coming home, he doesn't have any anger about not, losing the rabbit. He says he's going to create something new, and he just goes and creates Mickey Mouse instead. So that was a really condensed version of 2 long chapters that I thought were great. And then there's the Be a Salesman. You guys can talk about some of the Be a Salesman traits if you want to. Let's see. Let's start with Jenna. Your book, so we'll start with you first.
Well, like I mentioned a little earlier, the reason why I like this book so much is because it doesn't matter if the trait was negative, it doesn't matter if it was positive, other than smoking. But it doesn't matter what happened to him in life, including an actual pandemic, which we're going through right now. All of it, he just never lets it stop him from what he wants to do. I do think that is the main theme of these first 2 chapters. And for the salesman with the honesty, I do find that is extremely important. If I'm not lying about a product, if someone comes up to me and says, which bubble wand should I want? I immediately tell them, do you want to listen to Little Mermaid singing all day? And if they say no, I said, okay, then go with this one. Because in reality, I mean, if the kid really, really wants Little Mermaid, by all means, give the kid that one. But I do think it's important to be realistic about no matter what we're selling, because the guest really does appreciate it. You become 2 humans talking, you become more friendly than you do with the one who is just trying to. I feel like we all sense being fake. And I think that's essentially what they were talking about with the salesman, is that you sense it when someone's being fake. There is one particular quote that I've always really liked that I actually highlighted years ago in the book. You can see it's fading. But the Pollyanna, after all, was a Disney movie. Well, let the critics complain. The world would never miss 1,000 critics, more or less. It would be a much poorer place if they didn't have one with Disney. I really like that quote because it still plays into that theme, that it doesn't matter who you are, or how many other people have complained about something you've done, like the teacher with the flowers, telling him flowers can't have faces. He literally never listened to any of it. He didn't listen to the critics. He didn't listen to any of that. And what we did get, because he chose not to listen to everybody else, was what became of today. That's what I got. Hello, Tamara.
And hello, Jeanette, Tamara, how you guys doing? Yeah, he definitely never listened to the critics. I think the author at one point says something like was he too confident or whatever? But it was it doesn't matter, because in the end his dreams came true because he just never quit. It's crazy. Let's see, who do we want to do? Jen and Tamara, do you guys want to share it all?
We just wanted to say hi.
We just wanted to say hi.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Your faces.
We missed your faces, so we thought we'd log on.
We miss you too.
We miss you guys.
You have no idea how much we miss you.
Yes, no idea whatsoever.
I need to find a way to send ghost noises.
Woo! I'll send you guys a picture of my assistant from yesterday.
Your assistant?
Yes, I had a new assistant yesterday to help me out.
We just miss hearing your voices, and we can't do book club, so we thought we'd log on while we're waiting for somebody to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, so good to see you guys. I'm so glad you did.
It's very good to see you.
Well, have
Feel
a
free to
good
stay on.
one. What?
I said, feel free to stay on if you want to.
We just were listening, so we'll keep
Okay.
listening until we can't, until somebody yells at us.
All right. So, Vans, what did you take from the forward and the first 2 chapters?
The biggest lesson for me was to not be afraid to fail. So he talks about recognizing that it's okay to walk away and start over. Like after Laugh-O-Gram went bankrupt, he had to come to terms with the fact that it was time to just pick up and move on. So that was a big takeaway for me. My favorite quotes, I had two of them. So one of them was, in order to crack the field, I've got to get something a little unique. So that was in reference to him creating Alice, what was it called? Alice and something. The Alice in Wonderland series.
The Alice comedies or something? I forget.
Yeah. So he took something, it wasn't necessarily a revolutionary idea. He just created a unique twist on something that already existed, and it got him in the door. The other one was, if you have to get up and move to make your dreams come true, then get up and move. So a lot of times that we get stuck in this rut where we're not doing the things that we want to do. And it's just a reminder that sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So that was nice. And then some parallels that I found. Surround yourself with the best. So don't feel threatened by having better people around. And I try to do that every single day. Yeah, that's what I got out of this.
Wasn't it interesting that one of the great guys known for cartooning can't really draw cartoons at all himself?
Yeah.
He's just counting on his artist around him. It's a great lesson. Thank you very much for that. Haley, hello. Good to see you. I won't make you jump on right away, but I just want to say hello. Lauren.
Okay, so my Wi-Fi's a little shaky, so just let me know if it kind of cuts out or anything. Hi guys, I miss you all. So what I really liked about, especially chapter 2, was the lessons about being a great salesman. I mean, that was one of the big things that I learned throughout college, is that a great salesman is honest, and they try to be helpful. They aren't trying to undercut you. They're trying to make sure that their product or their service really just delivers and helps you out. And I feel like that's what Walt kind of does, especially with his confidence. And they were talking about how Walt just wasn't blowing smoke. He believed every word of it. He was talking about how like the enthusiasm is contagious, and I compared that to passion. I think that's really important even in our roles. Is obviously we're not trying, well, yes, we're trying to make sales, but at the core of it, we're trying to enhance an experience. We're trying to make people's day better. We're trying to be helpful people, and we're trying to be honest with the things that we do. And I just thought that was really cool, how something that is really close to my heart and to like my entire being as someone who works in business kind of was recognized in this book. So I thought that was really cool. And
Yeah, I think for me that opened up a lot of doors for me when I thought, like, I don't have to be dishonest to be a salesman. You can be a salesman and be honest. And when I first learned that, I was like, oh my God, like I can actually be a salesman. Because, my experience was, I think he talks about it in the book, like how, you're expecting that car salesman that sells you the lemon that you drive off the lot with and breaks down right after you get off the lot. And that's a really good lesson for all of us. Let's see. Judy, do you want to go next?
So for the first chapter, the main thing that I noticed was there was a lot of mention, like, he wasn't the brightest. Like, they mentioned his shortcomings, but even as a young kid, he didn't really care what people thought. Yeah, he recognized that he wasn't the smartest, but he was very creative and very imaginative. People saw his daydreaming as a negative quality, but he didn't think so, and it's probably because of his mom. But again, there's like my favorite part of that chapter was he was excited to celebrate Lincoln's birthday, so he dressed up as Lincoln and he memorized his Gettysburg Address, and he was so proud of that. And his principal recognized how I don't know what he recognized, but he loved it to the point where like, okay, let's go around to each class and recite the Gettysburg Address, you know, and he in his innocence, I guess, you know, he always, anybody that fed into his creativity or encouraged the type of person he was, he considered a lifelong friend, you know, like his principal, he kept in touch with them. And then when they mentioned that when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered, he invited the principal and the school to watch it for free, you know, so that was very poignant of that chapter, and we kind of saw it in the second chapter as well. Um, for chapter 2, it's important to have a good hard failure when you're young, and of course he lived that. You know, he never got bitter when things didn't go his way. You know, he just moved on to the next thing. When he lost Oswald, like one of the things they mentioned is that he didn't want to tell Roy. So instead of having like, oh my God, how am I going to tell him that we lost Oswald? He's like, well, you know what? Let me create something new so that we have something to work on. So he never chose to see the negative in anything. He always chose it to see what to learn from it. And that's when he learned like, okay, I'm never going to work for anybody again because I want to avoid this, you know? And for the lessons, actually one of the things they mentioned that I really liked was how Walt said not to think outside of the box, because then you've established that the box exists. Instead, don't think of a box existing, just, you know, do the impossible. So I thought that was a very important thing to learn. Like, don't limit yourself by imagining something, just, you know, always try to do the impossible. And that was a good lesson in and of itself.
Yeah, I often wonder, like, what is it that made him special, that made him be able to, like, be Walt? And it's just, I think it's just that he really believed in, like, dreams and getting there and just never quitting. And, man, I hope we all do someday. Douglas, you want to share what you had about the chapter?
First off, I really like this book. Back in the early 1990s, I had the privilege of meeting Art Linkletter when I had a tour of a radio studio that he was working at. And he's a really nice guy, and I never knew that he knew Disney and was a friend of Disney. And if I had known then, I would have been asking him all kinds of questions about him. Because even back then, I've been a Disney fan ever since I was a kid. Anyway, and then the other thing that fascinated me about this book is that the person who wrote it had never met Disney. He went off of what people told him about Disney. And Disney, he even says in the book that Disney became his mentor, even though he didn't know him. And that he lives, he finds a Disney lesson to use in his life every day. And that the Orlando Magic wouldn't be without this either. So anyway, that really touched me a lot. And one of the quotes that I liked that Art said about him was he was so childlike with his wide open imagination and his belief that anything is possible. Yet he was amazingly mature in his ability to focus on his goals and make his dreams come true. And I thought that's exactly what Walt was. I love reading about how he grew up, where he grew up, and how it molded his life, and how much Marceline was a big part of his life. Sorry, I'm scrolling to find the other thing. And then at the end of the foreword, Art says, so I encourage you to turn the page, read this book, then go out and carry on Walt's unfinished work. Dream big dreams and pursue those dreams with courage, optimism, and perseverance. Commit yourself to making the world a better place. I can imagine no finer tribute to Walt than that. And I think that's what we do every day when we're at work, when we're working with our cast members and working with the guests, that we're trying to honor Walt by keeping his dream alive and keeping the magic going. And anyway, I just love this book and what it's, you know, learning about, there's things I never knew about him that are fun to learn about, especially his relationship with his father and how all the kids, you know, they respected and loved their father, but yet they hated him too at the same time for his you know, whatever, his discipline and his lack of sense of humor and stuff. So, and how his mother made up for that part in her, as well as being herself. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely don't know if the Disney movies would be as funny without his mom, it sounds like, because she sounds like a riot. But yeah, I love that. Finish Walt's dream. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't as intimidated by that statement before I started reading these first two chapters as I am now. Now it seems like it's a monumental thing. He's quite a guy, obviously. Jessica.
Hey guys. So for this week, I can't believe I haven't done the sign yet, but we're going to do Disney. This one is more of a general sign, so it's not necessarily for Walt Disney or Disneyland. Disneyland has its own sign, which I'll do probably next week. But the sign for Disney that is generally accepted is you kind of make a C shape and you put it on your head like a Mickey Mouse ear. And technically you do it with both hands, but casually you would just do one, and that's the sign for Disney. And then if you were actually going to talk about Walt Disney specifically, you would finger spell it. And I'm sure in California, I'm going to reach out to some deaf people I know here. He probably has a name sign. So once you're in a deaf community, oftentimes you get something called a name sign. So it's can be kind of like a personality trait. So for me, my Jessica, the J is kind of like that. So I got a J on my cheek. It's kind of like I smile all the time. So that's my name sign. So I'm sure Walt Disney has a name sign, so I'm going to do a little bit more research and see if I can figure that out. But the general sign for Disney is Mickey Mouse or two-handed like that. So that's the sign for the week. So for me, the foreword, the quote that Doug read was definitely my favorite. It really stuck out to me. I liked the perspective, and it just everything Doug said was perfect for it. In chapter 1, I think it's really important seeing how he grew up and how most people kind of didn't believe in him and what he was doing and thought he was dumb or he just didn't care. But he just saw the world in a different way, and the little bit of encouragement helped him create what we all love and what we all work at, and created the imagination and just let him make amazing things and make the world a better place. So even in seeing cast members that come into the parks, just remember, or guests, and seeing like their little passions and listening to them and helping them and encouraging them, because that could blossom into something bigger and give them the passion that they need to continue. So I think that was kind of the big lesson that I learned from chapter 1, is that everyone sees the world in different perspectives, and it takes just one person listening to them and encouraging them to pursue what they enjoy and what their passion is that can lead to something amazing. And I really liked the concept of Walt choosing to focus on the good in his life and letting go of the bad. So in everything in life, we have good and bad. And if you choose to dwell on the bad and the negative, that's how your life is going to go. But the book talks so much about optimism and how that really fueled his imagination and the people who worked for him. And so by letting go of that bad and focusing on the good in your life, you can lead your life on a different trajectory. and that can help you encourage other people and build your dream. And then chapter 2, I really liked the idea of confidence being an attitude choice. If you, even if you don't feel confident, you can still adopt an attitude of confidence. I don't always feel very confident when I talk. I often get intimidated by people that I admire or look up to. And so remembering that confidence is a choice. No one ever feels confident, is what they were saying in the book. You just have to choose to be confident. And then that will help other people see you as confident, and you can become a good salesperson. So for me, that kind of thinking was really helpful in chapter 2. And that's all I got.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we needed another, I think he was a political cartoonist, right? We don't need another political cartoonist. So I'm glad he was given, he did something else with his life. Haley, you are the last, but certainly not the least. What did you think about this book?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm back. I think what I took from these 2 chapters the most was when he was talking about confidence, and he said nobody ever became successful by staying within their comfort zone. If you want to succeed, you have to do what Walt did. Take a big, confident step outside your comfort zone and start selling your dreams. And I think that goes hand in hand with the next point of courage, because I know from like myself, I hate the fear of rejection, but it's something that like you just need to get over, because there's rejection like every day in life, especially, you know, with what we do at work. So that, and always thinking like, what will other people think of me? And just knowing that like Walt didn't really think about that. So maybe that's something I should try to adapt into my everyday life. And it was also reading about Glenn Keane and how we talked about anything is possible in like each of those Disney movies that I never really kind of like put together. Especially when he talked about Beauty and the Beast and how Beast was so ugly and like deformed that it was so impossible for like anyone to ever love such a creature, and yet Belle did. So yeah, what's that?
Yeah, no, I just think that we keep hearing about being confident and how much that'll help us all. But I think that we all hopefully recognize that we all are super talented in our own ways as leaders, and we're just confident that we're going to go a long way. I wanted to bring up one point that I didn't know if anybody's going to bring up or not, but Roy is the background man of the whole entire company. He's the money man, everything. But at one point, they make a decision to make it Walt Disney Studio, and Roy just says, "Drop my name. It's okay. Like it's for the betterment of the company." And I think that almost never happens these days, where people are like, "Oh, I'm going to better the company by letting you drop my name," or I'm not going to be a partner in this law firm or whatever. It's always more and more and more. And Roy was just that guy who was like, whatever's best for the company. I thought that was a very cool thing. Also, you guys didn't bring up the fact that Walt gave his wife a dog in a Christmas present, and then that he replicated that scene for Lady and the Tramp. But I thought that was so cool that he like actually used things from his real life to make these cartoons. So I'm gonna unmute you guys real quick. There you go.
It wasn't a Christmas present.
What was it?
It was a forgive me present, because he kept working late and coming home long after dinner was cold.
That's
I'm
what
trying really hard to not like give away spoilers, but like when you get to it, one of my favorite stories in the entire book is about the petrified tree in the park. And now every time I see it, I just burst out laughing. So like I won't tell you what the story is, but it's hilarious.
Well, Jenna, I think it's been a kind of a hit, is what I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm glad all of you seem to like it. I hate to give a recommendation and everyone's like, why did you like it? You made Tanner read it a while ago and he liked it, so I figured it wasn't just me.
I like the format of the lessons at the end too, to actually give you some real good context of what his life's about. It's really good.
a book club within a book club. He does his own like synopsis of his own chapter at the end of what he took away from it.
I know it's like cheating. I could just copy that and do the book club, but I'm like, no.
The lessons to learn this week.
If you guys ever get to the, no, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. We're not gonna cheat. We're not gonna use the.
You've already put it out there, Patrick. I feel like.
Do we want to talk about? I think the next chapter is pretty short from what I remember. Am I wrong about that?
It's 22 pages.
Then it's very short. Yes.
But then chapter 4 is really long.
Like long, right?
Do you all know what happened to Walt's parents? Like how they died?
I've heard a version of the story, like there was an accident with gas, right? No.
Don't give it away because you read about it, but that one's really crazy too.
The 2 chapters together are 57 pages.
That's doable, right, guys?
That's basically what we did.
Yeah. So we'll do, would that be chapter 3 and 4? Yeah. I have the Audible version, which includes the forward as chapter 1, which is really frustrating.
Okay.
I'm on chapter 4 right now, which I'm not. Douglas, you met Ark Linkletter? I can't believe that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was he was like really cool, really funny, really laid back, and he called you by name, your first name. It was just it seemed like I was talking to him forever, but it must have been like 15 or 20 minutes. And yeah, he was, out of all, I've met a few, I guess, celebrities, but out of all those celebrities that I've met, him and Whoopi Goldberg have been my favorites.
I love
That's
Whoopi.
cool.
Yeah, she's
So
great.
cool.
I went to school in Missouri, and I was about an hour and a half from Marceline, and I still kick myself to this day that I never went there.
Oh, no.
I know. So one of the times I go back to visit, I'm going to have to make the drive because it's like an hour and a half to Kansas City, and Marceline, I think, is along the path.
Does anybody know if it still looks like, it used to look, or does it?
I think they at least have a museum, but I don't know if it still looks the same.
Yeah, speaking of which, if you guys ever go to the Walt, what's it called? The Walt Disney Family Museum, I think it is, in San Francisco. It's a really good breakdown of his life. So I know some of this stuff from there, but not, this book is crazy good. Learning a lot. But he was 20 when he had started his studio. Guys, like.
He grew up fast because he was 15 in the Army in a world war and a pandemic. So, I mean, we might actually see that with a lot of the kids right now, that all of them will grow up very quickly because of what's going on in the world right now.
They already have, actually.
Well, what amazed me about his younger was how, he tried to portray his age as being older a lot of the times, and only once did he get carded or for it. Nowadays, you try that, you're carded for everything. They take a photocopy and they have it on file. And it's just how different things are from back then, people are afraid to talk to each other, like somebody started talking to him on the train, just out of the blue. Nowadays, no, that doesn't happen. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that guy wasn't very nice either. He was like, "Don't be a cartoonist. You're gonna get run over out there." And I was like, "Oh my god."
I like his mother saying, to the father that I feel like there's more behind that story but you can kind of almost just get the hints of it, of when he was saying like all the other kids left in some way, shape, or form, so he was going to too. So just let him do it, so at least she knew where he was. Like, obviously the household wasn't happy, I would assume, if that was her thinking of all my other children left me, so he's going to, so at least I want to know where he was. Like, that's like, it was a really dark thought, but like one where it was a very mother thought of like, okay, well, I'm going to let him do wants because this is going to happen regardless.
Well, they all left at night.
Yeah.
So it's like they essentially escaped a life that they didn't want.
Yeah, it was like a weird dark undertone to what she's like. It wasn't written dark in the book, but you can kind of tell like there was more to the story going on that we're not hearing about.
Well, the fact that Walt would rather live with basically nothing in an office and pay 10 cents or however much it was once a week to get it back rather than live with his parents and eat cold beans, like that tells you something too. Like he had one pair of shoes that was it, and he was eating cold beans. Like that tells you a lot that he wouldn't go home when they were right there.
Yeah.
I
I didn't think
feel so
about
bad
that, but you're
about-
right.
I didn't feel so
I
bad about
agree
me before
with
when I realized I could go buy a pair of shoes right now and he couldn't even get his shoes repaired. I was like, oh my God. Like
Yeah.
that guy knew poverty like nobody else ever knew poverty. All right, well, do you guys want to meet the same time next week then for chapters 3 and 4?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Next week.
And Jessica, I don't have any suggestions for you. Does anybody else for signs?
Signs. I'll do Disneyland next week, and then I'll try and see if I can find the name sign for Walt Disney. But
I never knew people had name sign. That was also something I learned today. So thank you for that.
yeah. Any amount of Disney ASL knowledge I can give and the deaf culture, I'm happy to do so.
All right, guys. Well, same time next week. And thank you all for coming.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.